Today we have a crazy revenge story on a dad with a secret son. We'll get into that in a bit, but first, the excuse I didn't give. I was born 5 years after my brother was born, and my parents raised us with so much love. I don't know how they did it, but I love the way my brother and I were raised like twins. When my brother and I were much younger, we could pass as twins who were almost inseparable. My brother was easily the most affectionate and caring big brother in the world. He knew how to play the big brother role so well, and he's the reason why I feel so loved and confident. My brother and I are the only children of our parents, even though I desire to have a younger one after me because of how much I admire infants and toddlers. My parents had made it clear that they were having no more kids. Even though I was always making a funny face about it, somehow I loved their decision. I loved how they knew the number they could comfortably take care of and also dote on. My parents are the best parents a child could ask for. They ensured that we knew what it meant to feel loved, seen, and accepted. I remember the time when I was bullied in school. That was one of the darkest periods of my life. For some weird reasons, I didn't inform my parents, but the day they found out was the day the bullying ended. They made sure that I was showered with so much attention and warmth. That was the kind of love my brother and I were exposed to early on as children, and their sacrifices for my brother and me were very commendable because they didn't allow their financial status to determine how they treated their kids. They made it clear early on that my brother and I must always be there for each other, no matter what. Unfortunately, as we grew older, my brother liked to look after himself alone. Even though this was a trait that my parents refused to condone in any way, there was nothing they could do to help him at that point. I could see how much my brother's behavior was a source of concern to them. I mean, no one would have thought that he would turn out that way despite our parents' efforts to raise us right. When I got bullied at school, my brother knew about it, but he did nothing to ward off the bullies. The only thing he did was to simply look on while I got bullied. He could have stood up for me, but he looked away. It was shocking how I still managed to give excuses for my brother because I felt he was scared of standing up to bullies. I don't know how he managed to be uncaring and lackadaisical towards his family, and I wouldn't blame my parents for this because they did all they could to ensure that we were raised with so much compassion and kindness to show. When he went off to college, his attitude aggravated. He seldom called home, nor did he return calls as promptly as he should. I saw how upset my parents were on those days when he wouldn't return his calls on time. I could see the pain in my father's eyes and the despair in my mother's face. I could tell what they might have felt on those days, pain maybe. Eventually, I was asked to join him at his college. Even though I didn't quite appreciate such an idea, I just didn't want to have to deal with an uncaring brother. When I couldn't convince my parents, I had to oblige their request. I went through the orientation and all the rigorous exercises of a freshman student all alone, as though I had no brother present. I was quick to understand that he wanted maximum space, so I gave that to him. I only owe my parents for the frequent answers to their questions about his well-being. The longer we both stayed in college, the more we drifted apart. I don't know exactly how to place it, but I knew my brother wasn't always like that. He used to be a caring kid with so much kindness and care to give. We woke up one morning and we saw a changed teenager. He went from all that he was to all that he was. He became a mystery that none of us might ever be able to unravel. No matter how hard we tried to understand him or make him say something, he never said anything regarding his change in behavior. His circle of friends didn't change either, and we just saw him grow nonchalant by the day. When we both grew older, I knew that my parents could only wish that the little boy they swung in the air while he chuckled like the kid he was, or the little boy who could ask a million plus questions whenever he saw anyone looking pensive or moody, would come back to them. On my end, I got tired of waiting for the warmest big brother a girl could ask for to come back to me. No matter how hard I tried, I still couldn't forget this picture of me lying in the hospital back in college. I was literally fighting for my life while my brother was nowhere to be found. Even though we both lived in the same city, I couldn't understand why he left me there in that hospital bed despite placing so many calls through to him. He didn't show up until I got discharged from the hospital. After that, our relationship became so non-existent that I truly wondered if he was my brother, or if he refused to acknowledge me as his sibling. After that, he tried to come around a bit. He started being warm and friendly all of a sudden. By that time, some of my friends couldn't hide their surprise about the relationship I had with my brother. I remember how embarrassing it was when I fell sick and my brother didn't show up. They literally began to give me side eyes that depicted the possibility of faking our siblinghood. Who leaves his sister at the hospital without caring about a visit? Out of curiosity, I decided to take it upon myself to find out why my brother was both stoic and strange. He started getting close to me because he was trying to redeem himself. Fortunately for me, I was smart enough to use that opportunity to invade his privacy. I would barge into his apartment unannounced, and I wouldn't care if he made faces or not. He warned me several times to desist from such behavior, but I remained adamant. I didn't intend to stop until I found out what was fueling his attitude, which had brought so much pain to the family. I knew I couldn't get access to his mobile phone, so I didn't try. But I looked for a way to snoop through his PC after I had that strange urge to check it. That day was one of the days I'd forcefully announced my presence in his apartment in college. I was glad to have the PC on and accessible. I didn't know why I was so bold, but I was delighted to not have backed down on my quest. I searched quickly before he noticed that I'd been fiddling with his possessions. To be honest, I didn't have any expectations in mind when I searched through the laptop. I was just eager to see what he'd been up to, the projects he worked on, or perhaps if I could snoop into any of his social media. Well, I felt so lucky when I saw that his Facebook account was logged in and active. With a reflex action I never knew I possessed, I swung into action as I checked through his messages and friend list. I knew something must have been fueling his attitude, but nothing prepared me for the reality check I was forced to see on his Facebook account. My brother had been dealing with drugs. Not in a lifetime would I have imagined that my brother and hard drugs would be in the same sentence. Why? Why would D stoop to do that? When I thought I'd seen the worst, I saw some messages that showed that he was not only addicted to taking it, but he also sold some. Welp, that was much more information than I bargained for. I sat on that chair, unable to move or think, even when I heard my brother's footsteps. I knew he was coming towards my part of the room, and I knew he must have been shocked to see that I stood still while I touched what belonged to him, but I didn't budge. I did that because there was no worse thing I could see again. But I thought about our parents and how they would feel if they found out that their big baby had been messing around. I stood up with so much ease and patience, the type that I didn't know I had. I looked at him, and by that time, I was so much in tears. Don't blame me because I couldn't help it myself. I cried because I couldn't imagine why he started it and who influenced him first. You need to stop. You know what it would do to Mama and Papa, so you need to stop. By that time, I was already screaming. You know, my brother didn't say a thing to me. He didn't try to stop me when I stormed out of his apartment. As I left, I just wondered when he became so hardened and tough. I tried to take it back to our high school days. I tried to remember when he started withdrawing from all of us in the home. And I remembered vividly that he was seen with some guys who were notorious and unfriendly. I had warned him to steer clear of such guys, but he didn't listen. I ended up telling our parents, who kept him grounded for days. I remember that everything got worse after that punishment. If there was any friendship between us, it would become non-existent. I tried to make him see that I didn't intend to make our parents punish him and that I was only looking out for him. Looking back now, I can see that's too late even then. He made us believe that he was no longer chilling with the bad boys, yet his relationship with everyone at home continued to deteriorate with each passing day. Everything made more sense to me when I saw the result of those unhealthy relationships he kept. Days later, I tried to reach out to him since he didn't see the need to reach out to me, but he never answered my calls or returned any of them. I also stopped calling at some point because I had to accept that only my brother could decide to come back to his family if he wanted to. Unfortunately, things got worse from there. I got a call that my brother had been arrested and charged in court for possession of harmful substances. Right there, my world came crashing down, but I was surprised that I didn't break into tears, nor did I show any sign of panic, because I knew I was done with my brother. I hated to think that I loathed him for causing us perpetual pain all those years. I didn't show up to support him during the trial, not because I was weak, but because I needed him to feel the pain of abandonment. The same pain he made our parents and made me feel for so many years. That was the last excuse I ought to have made for my brother, and it was the excuse I refused to make for him or anyone at all. I'm just wondering if after the brother was arrested, they were consistent with the kind of behavior they've been giving OP for a while anyways. Like, would they have actually reached out to OP? Would it have made any difference for the brother if OP showed up to the court or not? I mean, OP can say that they got this revenge by never showing up, but considering the recent behavior, were they even asked to show up? Also, hi, I'm Steven, and if you guys enjoy crazy stories of revenge, it would be amazing if you left a like or left a review if you're listening to my podcast. That said, our next story is fired from my job unfairly, so karma had to be delivered. I remember when I was in my 20s and got hired as a graphics designer at a small marketing firm. It was one of the best things that could have happened because I was in need of a breakthrough in my career. It was your regular office, at least the best that could have been gotten as far back as 2013. The office was modern, vibrant atmosphere with colorful posters and inspirational quotes lining the walls. Everyone seemed friendly and passionate about their work. I was thrilled to be a part of the team that valued creativity and innovation. The firm had a solid client base, and I was excited to contribute my skills to help them grow. Everything seemed perfect, and I was eager to dive into my new role. As the graphic designer at the marketing firm, my role was useful in crafting visual identities that aligned with our clients' branding strategies. Tasked with creating compelling graphics and layouts, I collaborated closely with the creative director and team to translate conceptual briefs into impactful designs. This included developing a wide range of assets such as logos, brochures, social media graphics, and web banners, ensuring each piece resonated with the client's goals and maintained a consistent visual language. Proficiency in Adobe Creative Suite was essential as I balanced multiple projects, managing deadlines and revisions while adhering to strict brand guidelines. My responsibilities extended beyond design execution. I also communicated directly with clients, presenting proposals and integrating feedback to refine and enhance our deliverables. At first, my manager Claire appeared supportive and approachable. She greeted me warmly on my first day, gave me a tour of the office, and even treated me to lunch. Claire emphasized how much she valued creativity and encouraged me to bring fresh ideas to the table. I was given some goals that I was required to be done with at the end of the year. I explained to Claire that the goals she set for me were unrealistic and the time given wasn't enough to finish the tasks properly. She just smiled and encouraged me to try anyway, saying that if the work turned out well, the quality wouldn't matter. Reluctantly, I agreed to give it my best shot, despite knowing deep down that it would be extremely challenging to meet her expectations under those conditions. Then just a few months later, she started criticizing my work after she found out I sometimes took smoke breaks. Even though these breaks were outside work hours and away from the office, she didn't like smokers, and she made that much known to me the day she caught me with a stick. This was where it all began. Subtle criticisms began to creep into our conversations. Claire would nitpick my designs and offer vague, unhelpful feedback. Though ever the pretentious person she was, she still tried to feign all being well when we were around other colleagues. I had barely spent 6 months there and Claire's true colors had begun to show. My designs, which I'd once been proud of, were torn apart with vague and often inconsistent feedback. "This is too bold," she would say, only to later complain that my revisions lacked impact. It felt impossible to please her. What was worse, she started taking credit for all my better ideas in team meetings, presenting them as her own. The emotional toll was significant. Work was getting tiring, as I'd begun to dread coming into work each day. My passion for design was overshadowed by the constant fear of more unjust reviews. It didn't end there. Soon enough, she began blaming me for mistakes I didn't make. If a client was unhappy with a campaign, she would point the finger at me, even if I'd followed her directives to the letter. The workload became overwhelming as she piled on more tasks with impossible deadlines. It was clear she was setting me up to fail. I found myself working late nights, fueled by stress and coffee, desperately trying to meet her expectations. The breaking point came one bleak Monday morning. Claire called me into her office with a look of cold satisfaction. She claimed my performance was subpar and that I wasn't a good fit for the team. Turns out I was way behind on work and things that were scheduled to have been finished months ago were left untouched, as I still had so many revisions to make from past projects. Despite my efforts and dedication to seeing that all expectations were met and corrections taken, she decided to fire me. The unfairness of her accusations stung deeply. I felt a wave of betrayal and anger, but also a strange sense of relief. The nightmare was over, but I couldn't shake the bitterness of being treated so unjustly. As I packed my belongings, I knew that Claire would regret underestimating me. She would wish she had just left my smoking habit alone, as it was none of her business in the first place. A few weeks after my unceremonious firing, I ran into an old colleague at a networking event. Over coffee, they let it slip that Claire was working on a high-profile project for a very important client. This project was a make-or-break opportunity for the firm, one that could significantly elevate their status in the industry. Hearing this, a spark ignited within me. The memory of Claire's unfair treatment and her betrayal fueled a burning desire for revenge. I realized this was my chance to turn the tables. I decided that I would use my industry knowledge and connections to ensure that Claire's big project would be her downfall. I reached out to an old friend, Tom, who worked at a competing firm. Tom's company had the resources and expertise to handle a high-profile project, and they were always on the lookout for new opportunities. I explained the situation to Tom, detailing Claire's project and how we could position his firm to swoop in and take over. Tom was eager to help, sensing the potential for a significant win. Meeting with Tom and his team at their sleek, modern office, I felt a mix of excitement and determination. We sat down in a glass-walled conference room and I laid out the situation. I detailed my experience with Claire and the high-profile project she was desperate to secure. Tom listened intently, nodding as I explained how this project would be a game-changer for their firm. Trust was key. I had to convince them that my insider knowledge was accurate and valuable. After presenting my information, I proposed a deal. They would pay me a finder's fee if they won the contract. Tom's eyes gleamed with opportunity, and after a brief discussion with his team, he agreed. We shook hands, sealing our pact. This partnership was born out of mutual benefit, and it was clear that we were both eager to see Claire's downfall. With our agreement in place, I began feeding Tom's team the specific details they needed. I shared everything I knew about the project, the client's preferences, key deadlines, and the particular style they favored. I even provided insights into the client's previous campaigns and what had impressed them in the past. This information was gold, allowing Tom's firm to tailor their pitch perfectly. I spent hours reviewing and refining their proposal, ensuring that every detail was spot on. We created a pitch that not only met but exceeded the client's expectations. I coached Tom's team on how to present their ideas convincingly, emphasizing the unique value they could offer. The pitch was flawless, and we were confident that it would outshine anything Claire could come up with. The day of the pitch presentation arrived, and I waited anxiously for news. Tom kept me updated via text message. His team delivered the pitch with confidence, highlighting their tailored approach and deep understanding of the client's needs. The client was visibly impressed, and the presentation went off without a hitch. A few days later, Tom called me with the news I'd been waiting for. His firm had secured the contract. The client was thrilled with their proposal and immediately transferred all their business to Tom's firm. The high-profile project was now in the hands of a competent team who would execute it flawlessly. As Tom's firm began working on the project, their success was evident. The client was delighted with the quality and creativity of their work, which far surpassed anything Claire's team could have delivered. The project not only met but exceeded the client's expectations, strengthening Tom's firm's reputation in the industry. Meanwhile, I felt a deep sense of satisfaction knowing that Claire's arrogance and unfair treatment had led to her own downfall. Watching Tom's firm succeed where Claire had failed was immensely gratifying. My revenge had been executed perfectly, and the sweet taste of justice lingered as I continued to build my own successful freelance career. The freedom to choose my projects and clients was liberating. I poured my energy into building a portfolio that showcased my best work, highlighting the creativity and attention to detail that had once been stifled by Claire. Word spread quickly about my availability, and soon I was flooded with requests from clients eager to work with me. Early successes included a branding overhaul for a tech startup and a series of eye-catching ad campaigns for a local boutique. The personal satisfaction of seeing my work appreciated and valued was immense. I relished the autonomy and the ability to set my own pace. The experience with Claire, though challenging, had strengthened my resolve and honed my skills, paving the way for my flourishing freelance career. Meanwhile, back at my former company, the fallout from Claire's failure was swift and brutal. Losing the high-profile client to Tom's firm was a devastating blow. The client transferred all their business to the competitor, citing the superior quality and creativity of their work. Claire's mismanagement and the loss of such a crucial account did not go unnoticed. The upper management, already on edge from previous complaints and her abrasive leadership style, had no choice but to take action. Claire was fired for her incompetence and the significant revenue loss. The company struggled to recover from the financial hit and the tarnished reputation. Morale plummeted among the remaining staff, and several key employees left for better opportunities. The once promising marketing firm was now a shadow of its former self, grappling with the consequences of Claire's disastrous tenure. Adding an unexpected twist to my revenge, I received a call from a former colleague who had also suffered under Claire's management. They thanked me for what I had done, sharing that Claire's firing had improved the work environment considerably. I will never figure out how they knew it was me behind the whole ordeal, but I couldn't be bothered. It wasn't as if I had any loyalty checks binding me to the firm. Additionally, I learned that Claire struggled to find new employment as word of her mishandling of the high-profile project and her toxic management style had spread in the industry, making her somewhat of an outcast. Knowing my actions had not only avenged my mistreatment but also brought about positive change for my former colleagues made my revenge even sweeter. Justice had been served, and I felt a profound sense of closure. Looking back now, I see how each obstacle and setback shaped me into the person and professional I am today. The betrayal and hardship strengthened my resolve to never settle for less than I deserve and to always strive for excellence in my work. Starting my freelance journey was a leap of faith that has paid off beyond my expectations. The early successes affirmed my talent and dedication, fueling my passion for creative expression. So, in the end, even if Claire had not received the ultimate karma, I would have been fine just knowing we both got what we deserved. Honestly, I think considering the way Claire ran their ship, I think OP just kind of sped things up a little bit. What happened to Claire was probably an inevitable thing in my eyes, and OP just kind of helped it usher along much quicker. I mean, the company itself should be actually grateful somehow to the person that got work to leave that company. Either way. That said, our next story is, my dad had a secret son out of wedlock he never told us about, and his mum is nuts. When I, 18-year-old female, first found out about my dad's pancreatic cancer, I was shocked and so was mum. My mum and I had gone to see a movie earlier in the day and came back home to meet my dad seated in the living room staring into space. We asked him what was going on, and he delivered the news so calmly like he had just ordered pizza or a simple convo while we stood shocked to the core at his statement. My dad had just recently been promoted to a senior manager at the bank, while my mom had been secretly planning to divorce my dad. So, as you can guess, things hadn't really been rosy between them. It was sad because my dad dedicated 20 years of his life to his work alone. He always believed that he would have enough time for rest and his family when he retired. So for now, the goal was to make money. He was so close to losing his wife he didn't even know it, and my mom was tired of being neglected by her husband. It was worse for me because I was the only child. I was about to lose a part of my family. Granted, he wasn't always at home, but at least I had a dad. My mom and I immediately started looking into the best care, course of treatment, and actions, but to our disappointment, the doctor said he was too far gone to be saved. I was devastated. I didn't even get to spend enough time with my dad as I wanted to, and now he had just a year left. My mom was also distraught by the news. My dad, on the other hand, was so calm, like he knew this was coming. He suggested we spent the year doing things we actually loved with the money he worked tirelessly for, rather than waste his time on treatment that wasn't going to work, and we did. My dad randomly quit his job and started making plans for our trips. We visited 4 different cities. My dad had always wanted to go to Cape Town. That was the first destination. We went to Greece, Italy during summer, and Japan for a short while. I had to put school on hold for a while, but it was worth it. He had work calls at intervals not so much as before. We decided to spend Christmas at the beach house. My dad was the best version of himself, despite his sickness weighing him down. He did his best to put on a smile. After Christmas, things got worse. So bad we went to the hospital for meds or anything to lessen his pain. He was placed on different meds, but we knew eventually what was to come, and while my mom and I expected it, it didn't make things less painful when he died. It was around late January. We both felt his loss. Colleagues and coworkers came by to offer their condolences. There were lots of visitors constantly coming by. So when I saw a lady of about 30, if I were to guess her age, with a kid knocking on our door, I assumed she was also a colleague. She asked for my mom, who was busy making preparations for my dad's funeral at the time, and I was helping her out. The lady seemed nice and all until I heard the next words coming out of her mouth as I said in quote, "Your husband is my son's father." This was a big shock to me, and my mom was stunned. She didn't believe the lady even after she brought out pictures of my dad and her together with their son. She brought out a DNA test slip showing us the accuracy of the test. It was like she had been preparing for this moment for a long time. According to her, she and my dad met during a summit he went for. It must have been during one of his work travels, and they secretly had a relationship. I looked at the boy, and the resemblance was there. I didn't want to admit to it myself, but it was clear that this little boy of about 7 or 8 years was my father's son. And while I stood there waiting for my mom to say something, she just sat back down and resumed what she was doing, ignoring the woman with the kid. The woman brought out a piece of paper and wrote down her number, saying she would be in contact to confirm when the lawyer calls. And my next question was, what lawyer? She boldly answered, the lawyer who would read the will. This was when the lady's intentions became clear. She was here to inform us about her rights to my dad's assets and properties. I had seen scenarios like this in movies, and I always wondered the level of audacity it must take to feel entitled to someone else's properties, but watching this lady speak made me realize it wasn't just about audacity, but more of shame, and she had none. She didn't look sad, ashamed, or even emotional, and it had only been a week since my father died. As soon as the lady left, I saw my mom's face filled with anger. I knew she was furious at my dad for the same reason I was, that he never told her even when he had all the opportunity in the world to say something all through our trips. He said nothing to my mom, leaving her to clean his mess. My mom called my dad's lawyer immediately to ask if anyone had recently contacted him about a will, and he said no. That was a huge relief for us both. We started making plans on what to do. First, we went to the hospital to get my dad's hair sample, and my mom called the lady to come over with her son to the hospital. The lady was reluctant. She said she didn't see the need to be doubted since she'd shown us all her evidence. My mom then told her if she wanted any part in the participation of the will reading, she would come. As expected, the lady came the next day with her son, and a DNA test was done at the hospital, which confirmed my dad was indeed the father's child. This gave her more audacity. By some miracle, she got my mom's number, and she began calling my mom on different occasions, asking for the lawyer's number so she can keep tabs on the will. My mom always ends up angrily hanging up on her without complying to her requests. I really had no idea what my dad saw in that gold digger, but it was clear that she was after money. 2 months ago, our lawyer calls us to announce that the will was ready. My mom informed the lady, Patricia, who didn't fail to hide her excitement. We went to the office where the will was announced, and there was nothing given to Patricia or her son, not even a dime. Patricia made a huge scene at the office. It got so serious that she left without her son, saying she had no means to take care of him, and she had been depending on the will to turn things around. Nobody was buying her BS. If she was so desperately in need of money, she should have gotten a job. That is what normal humans do. Her son was left in our care. We took him home with us and gave him a room while my mom called Patricia, who refused to answer our calls. I asked the boy if he knew his mom's address, but it turns out she lived with someone, a man specifically whose house they had just recently moved into, so he had no idea where that was. A week goes by and Patricia still hasn't come for her son despite the several voice messages we left on our cell. She totally abandoned her son and left without a care in the world. My mom took care of him, Peter, while I went to school, and I helped her out after school with him. It wasn't so bad having a sibling, to be honest. It was actually fun to have him around. He stopped being so shy and quiet after a few days of adjustment. I had fun playing different games and sports with him. He also made the house fuller and lively. We were in the process of trying to get Peter into a school when his mom suddenly arrived with cops claiming we stole her son. I was so mad, especially because all our neighbors were watching us as Patricia made a scene. It was really twisted and diabolical of her to make such accusations, but nonetheless, my mom followed the cops to the station where they resolved things. We had to call our lawyer, who saw her when she left without the kid. My mom was let go. She decided against pressing any charges on Patricia. It wasn't worth it. Patricia was given a stern warning by the cops not to cause any trouble. She eventually left with Peter, who was reluctant to go. I kept thinking of how my dad's son was with a person like Patricia, and what we could do to help him. I tried to speak to my mom about him, but she didn't want any more problems with Patricia, so she told me to leave him be. After a lot of pleading and convincing from me, my mom finally decided to give our lawyer a call and put our second vacation home in Peter's name, saying he only had rights to it when he was 18. My mom and I went over the paperwork, making sure there wasn't anything linked to Patricia that could be used against us by her before signing. While we weren't specific about who our lawyer could and couldn't tell about the beach house, My mom and I never expected him to tell Patricia since he knew how crazy she can be, especially when it came to money, but he did. And the next thing I know, Patricia is slamming on our house door claiming she was cheated. She was supposed to be given the vacation house, not her son, that she deserved it more. My mom and I didn't give her the time of day. This went on for almost an hour before she finally gave up. Or so we thought. It was around 7 when I came out and saw her sitting by the porch outside. She used that opportunity to slip into the house demanding to see my mom, who, in a fit of rage, asking her to leave or she was calling the cops on her. That didn't stop her from throwing tantrums and making a mess of our home. She broke our vase and flower pots, smashed things because she wanted rights over her son's house. My mom called the cops and this time she was taken to jail. She kept saying different things about how we fabricated the will into our favor and gave her son the beach house because we felt guilty leaving them penniless. This brought a reinvestigation on the whole will matter. Our lawyer found himself explaining each details written by my dad, who never once mentioned Patricia when he was writing his will. After the investigation was done and nothing looked suspicious, Patricia was asked to formally apologize to my mom, who decided not to press charges. We got a restraining order against her alone and called our lawyer, who got started, and within a week it was approved by the court. We haven't seen or heard from her since. I miss talking to Peter, but I know calling him means getting involved with his mom, so I have to stay clear of them, and the vacation house is still under his name. Once he turns 18, he has the right to it. It's actually kind of legitimately depressing that Opie was building a relationship with Peter and then it has to end like it is, and then knowing it's likely she's going to just probably give Peter the bare minimum raising treatment she can, probably going to be a monstrous, horrible parent until they turn 18, and then trying to force them to hand the house over or something. Or, I don't know, do you guys think she'll flip and actually be a good parent? I mean, she abandoned her kid for a whole period of time. It literally got to the point where OP and their mom were just looking to get him back into school on their own. I mean, that had to have been at least like a month, right? But with that being said, that's all the time we have for today. Now, if you want to hear another absolutely crazy revenge story, check out that video on the left. Or if you missed my latest video, check out that video on the right. That said, I'll see you all next time with some more stories.